What's up, everybody? Welcome to In Before the Lock, where we talk everything pinball mods. Welcome to 2025. You've got Rob with the Electric Playground and Davey with Stumbler Pinball. Davey, welcome to 2025, man. How you feeling?
Roback, good to see you, man. I'm feeling all right. I'm feeling good. Brand new year, brand new me. The possibilities are endless.
Brand new you. I want to hear more about that.
I say that every year, man. It's nothing new.
Okay. Nice. Well, guys, we got a great show for you. This is our first episode of 2025. We kind of came up with this topic in the last couple of days where we're going to be talking about all things making and building mods. So we've got a great guest lineup for you, mod makers. This show is for the mod makers. So to bring our first guest on, which is a returning guest, we've got Jimmy Lipham with 86 Pixels and creator of just released this year, Pinlights. What's up, Jimmy?
Hey, guys. Great to be here. Appreciate it.
Hey, Jim.
Yeah. How's everybody doing?
Good. Yeah, we're good, man. We're good. What's so give us the quick overview on Pinlights, and I know you've got some new stuff coming. What's new on the horizon for you guys?
Sure. Pinlights, sleek, cost-effective, above the playfield, aftermarket playfield lighting for your 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s, and today pinball machines. So far, those are flying off the shelves. We're trying to keep up with demand. But coming up here in the next, I'd say 4 to 6 weeks, certainly by TPF, we'll have our Pinlights Pros, which are fully reactive, immersive, RGB, above playfield lighting, all that good stuff. So got that new edition coming out this TPF.
Amazing. Nice. So this is a low-profile lighting system that goes along the rail, correct?
Yep.
And
exactly.
is your current models not interactive with the game, and this one is, or is it just taking it to the next step?
They're interactive. This one's just interactive times a million and RGB. So the current ones are cool white, warm white, and then a UV flasher. So mostly just solving the dark playfield problem in a cost-effective way. That's what the current edition does.
And not your first mod.
No, it's a problem. No, we started back in 2020 doing the PinVision displays. Now this was before PinSound's PinVision, but we did the backboard displays. For Twilight Zone, Tron, Theater of Magic, we did like a half silvered mirror that interacts with the game and plays videos depending on the modes that you're in and all that jazz. And we still make those. We just do them in batches now. So nice. We'll be doing another run of Twilight Zones here.
Batches, something you should consider as a mod maker. Well, I'll give you your proper title card. Guys, check out Pinlights. Great new product, great option for your game. And we've also got Brad Roback with Pingrips, no affiliation. Hey, Brad. How you doing, Brad?
Hey, hello guys. How are you?
Welcome to the show. Well. Brad, you reached out to me, I think about a month ago, telling me about a new product that you had coming down the line. We're going to talk about it for a little bit today. Can you give us an overview, and I'll flash some photos for you?
Yeah. So we have developed and just launched recently a product that we call Pingrips. And it is, I would consider it, I guess, an add-on accessory to a pinball machine. And it actually, snaps in underneath the lockdown bar. And it just allows you to have a more comfortable feel on the machine, place to put your thumb other than on the glass. And then actually, when you grip it, it actually gives you a little better grip on the machine as well. So we've been doing all kinds of versions of this and starting to sell, and have gotten a very good response so far.
And there's another component as well. I think I'll pull it up here if I can pull it out. You've also got a piece that goes on the side of the machine as well.
Right. For machines like your Pro versions and for Bally Williams and those that don't have side armor on them, if you have that, you can add what we call Pingrips Plus. You can add that to the pin grip as well as an extension, help you protect the cabinet. And it has a little different feel with that on it versus the grip. But it is also an added accessory to that.
Now, Brad, I think Rob was saying this is your first sort of foray into mod making, but you've done a lot of product design before. Is that correct?
Well, yeah, my background is product design. I'm a mechanical engineer. I've been in automotive industry since I was 15, so that's 45 years. And so we engineer, design, and develop assemblies for automobiles. So there's
so you've taken a lot of that knowledge. You've taken a lot of that knowledge into this product.
I've taken some, yeah.
Okay, because they look great quality. When I was sort of seeing the pictures of them, I was trying to work out sort of what material you've used to produce them, because obviously as a mod maker you tend to get really nerdy with this kind of stuff and trying to work out whether it's been 3D printed or whether it was done by a farm or what product was used. Would you mind sharing that?
Yeah, of course. So we started about 6 months ago in development ideas, and actually the very first one was made out of silly putty. So didn't think that would really,
but not the final version.
Yeah,
obviously.
So for some reason I had an idea at night, woke up in the morning, got some silly putty and put them on. But yeah, we tried several different types of materials and printing techniques. We actually started with resin printing.
Yep.
There was some limitations in that, primarily color limitations and resins to try and get somewhat close to matching the colors that we wanted. And then some other issues with resins, there was quite a bit of warping during the curing for these thin. You can see that there's some thin walls on there. There's not a lot of real estate for you to lock it in underneath the lockdown bar and lock it in. So we ended up using the bamboo printer, 3D printing, and we're using the PLA type materials. And we've found that it's the best for printing so far, and reasonable durability. It's not exactly where we want it. It'd be nice if it was injection molded for the strength, but just the number of
pretty cost prohibitive to do that, though, isn't it? Like,
well,
I mean, the number that gets bandied about when it comes to that kind of stuff is 10 grand for the mold, even before you start doing anything.
Exactly. And we weren't 100% sure how the market would accept it, so I think we have a product that people like, and it seems like it's acceptable, the construction and the options that people have. So we put our toe in. And
yeah. So you've given me a couple of these, and I've kind of been a little bit of part of the prototyping process. Davey's got some on the way, and Davey, I'm looking to hear what you think. But I just kind of want to share kind of some of my thoughts on it. I mean, obviously, the natural reaction to something like this is I don't need that, right? Like, and I know we've talked a little bit about that, but I will say after getting it, there's a couple of things early on that really kind of I noticed. One, the fit is incredibly snug. Like, you guys have made this thing like stick on there where it feels like it's a part of the game. I also say that I know one of your kind of phrases is like getting locked into the game. I will say it definitely allows you to have that locked in feel. That surface, just kind of when you put your hands on it, like it feels like it's natural and part of the game. I know you've got some color options coming, which is really cool. I just showed the X-Men one earlier, so there's some really cool stuff you can do. It's hard aesthetically complementing your game, but I would say it's what are they, $30 a pair? Is that
yeah?
Right?
We're selling them on Pinside and on our website for $30. That includes shipping. So shipping's paid for in there, and
yeah, price.
Yeah, definitely worth a shot. Are you guys going to be at any shows coming up where people can get their hands on these in person?
We're actually going to be at TPF.
Okay.
It'll be our first show that we've officially had a booth at, so we're excited about that.
Nice.
To get some people to see them and touch them and feel them, and get to meet all you guys.
We'll pop over and do some interviews. Rob will probably be over on the first day, and then he'll harass me for 2 days to go and do interviews, and I'll come over on the last day.
Dr. Brad yet? Cool. Where where can people learn more about this, Brad?
You can go to our website at pinnovationdesign.com, and we also have a store on Pinside, and you can look up pinnovationdesign.com or just type in Pingrips and it should come up.
Nice. And are you shipping already, or how far are you out?
We started in late December, and so we're shipping. We're taking orders off website and off Pinside, so everything seems to be working.
Nice. And I have to share a little bit of the behind the scenes as far as your pinball experience. You sent me these photos and some amazing work on both Flash Gordon and 8-Ball Deluxe. Did you do this work yourself, or tell us about your pinball journey here?
Yeah, I did. I've always been a tinkerer, and I do service machines. I actually do all the service for our local arcade here, and so I've tinkered with machines for years.
Nice.
And so, it actually.
Some close-ups on the Flash Gordon. I mean, you did like playfield swap, cab restore. This is all your work?
Yes, it is. Yeah,
Amazing.
Got about 80 hours into this one. I got a little carried away.
Davey, you got
Flash is an amazing game, though.
You have one, right, Davey?
It's gone. Yeah, I did have one, but it's unfortunately it's sunset on Flash Gordon. The back glass scared my daughter too much, so yeah, I don't know why. I think it was Ming the Merciless. I think she just didn't like the look on his face.
What is wrong? Oh yeah, he's a little angry.
It's Ming at the bottom, I think, that she wasn't keen on. I don't know why. Yeah, it's the eyebrows. It's the eyebrows.
Nice.
Yeah, nice. She wasn't keen on it. Whereas I think Flash Gordon's like one of the best games of that era. I've got a couple of favorites. Vector being the other one, even though that's highly controversial. But yeah, Flash Gordon's an absolute cracker. So well worth a restore.
Nice. Very, very cool. Thanks for sharing those, Brad.
Yeah,
well, we're gonna dive into our main topic today, but real quick, reminder that today is the last day to vote for the Twippies, which is the Pinball Community Award. So you can go to twippies.com and get in on that. Most everybody here, not Brad because his product didn't qualify, but Jimmy's on there, Davey's on there, we're on there. So dig through that and see who you want to vote on. Any shout outs for any projects or products that you guys want to throw out there? Davey, anything? Anybody you want to give a shout out to?
Yeah, I'll always give a shout out to my man Paul Jazz Boucher. We do a lot of work together. Very talented dude. Runs his own toy company, which is essentially the coolest fucking job in the world, which I'm always very jealous of. And always got very cool stories about Lego and Nerf blasters. You're not allowed to call them guns. Nerf blasters, and all these companies that he works with. So yeah, he's got 2 mods up in the Twippies as well. He's got his new Atomic Godzilla topper and his Bond laser, which is always very cool. And just everybody pay attention to the homebrew section as well. Those guys are just the champions of the pinball world in my view, and the most, they put in more hours than any of us, I reckon, more late nights. So make sure you get involved in the homebrew section and vote for your favorite.
Definitely. Yeah, the most votes ever. I think they're pushing 7,000 votes. Which is amazing. There's 2 homebrew categories. That's my shout out. I got to give a shout out to Nick Neitzel, who did the Tony Hawk Pro Skater, and Kyle Smet, who did the Friday the 13th. Both 2 amazing examples. And then there's a remake or a retheme category as well too. So 2 homebrew categories you can vote for. Brad, any Twippy nominees you got your eye on?
Well, I think I've got a Godzilla that might need a topper right here.
Oh yeah, okay. Now I told you can't sit and mention me.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, man, we got a couple of our toppers in there, so you definitely need a topper.
Yeah, like the homebrews that you said too. I went to Expo. I think it's been 25 years ago. We lived in Milwaukee for a while, so I used to go down. So I went there quite a while ago. But yeah, I got a chance this year to go back and got to play some of the home brews. The Tony Hawk was cool. I think is Saw, was that a
That's a re-theme.
It's a whirlwind
Yeah.
re-theme, yeah.
Yeah, that one.
And that's in that's in the list as well. Yeah.
Yeah, very well done. That's kind of that's something maybe I would aspire to do someday. I'm not sure at this point in time, but
no,
Yeah.
I mean time being the operative word in that sentence. Yeah.
Yeah.
Jimmy, you got any Tubi shout outs for us?
Yeah. So, like some of the content creators, aside from this, I can't plug what we're currently doing here. Okay?
I mean, you can.
Ignoring,
Side, plug away, my friend.
Nope, can't do it. Shout out to the Pinball Mafia down in Houston or Beaumont, Texas. A group of tournament players. They get together every Sunday for the past 10 years and have been streaming on Twitch. No drama, just a fun-loving family. They're all, they get together and play every Sunday night, and they stream it. So they're in the nominations as well. So big shout out there. Homebrewers, obviously, Nick, you killed it on Tony Hawk. I've been out of the homebrew scene for about a decade now, but it's like that. You're pulling me back in with that one. Like I see it and I'm just like, ooh, that so fantastic. And then of course, shout out to Brad Albright for his work on Motorhead with Dave Peck.
100%.
Yes. Blood, sweat, and tears, just his heart and soul went into that game. So my hat will always be off to those guys and the next generation of pinball designers is, if they're not you, they're going to be standing on your shoulders. So fantastic job all around.
For sure. All right, guys, I'm gonna flash it up there. Tubies.com. If you know a mod maker, give them a shout out. There's a lot of content creators, tons of content creators, and of course all the games. I mean, the new games. Like if you look at the new games and you want to vote on new game, there wasn't like 5 new games this year. There was like 15. It's crazy. So definitely a great year to get in on the votes. All right, we're doing this. So, guys, we're going to talk today about all the things that we've seen, heard, done, not done well about making mods. So the idea here is we're going to kind of go through, what at least we've outlined is like kind of the 7 stages that you would go through in the process of making a mod, and just kind of talk about, each one. I don't think we're going to get through it all in this episode. So we're just going to kind of set it out right here. This will probably be a multi-part episode in terms of, hitting these, and hopefully we can get Jimmy and Brad to come back and talk with us more about it. But we're going to take our time with this. If you guys have questions about anything throughout the show, really hitting any area of mod making, put them in the chat. We'll try to pull them up and hit those. So let's go ahead and kick this off. We're kind of going to start at the early stages of mod making, which is the R&D phase. And I call it R&D, research and development. It's really just the point where you're trying to decide what to build, and of course decide how to build it and think about who it appeals to. Brad, I know you're new to this with your product, but Jimmy and Davey have been through this with lots of products. Davey, you want to start us off and kind of tell us what your current process is for early thinking?
Yeah, I mean, mine's pretty sort of lo-fi, I guess. Really what I do is wait for a new game to come out. I mean, I think sort of the guys who are sort of really trying to turn mod making into a business have sort of come to realize that where the most amount of sales are is going to be in new games coming out. So, by following that release schedule of the main sort of manufacturers, you're sort of benefiting from their hype as well. So a new game comes out, there's lots of hype surrounding it, there's all the marketing surrounding it, and you're sort of riding that wave, I suppose. So that's where the orders will come from, is from the new games. So really my R&D is led by those new game releases, but I guess the sort of the analysis that you have to do comes from what happens after that release. And that is, how well is this game being received by the community? Is it going to be is it massive? Is it not massive? Are there other games coming out later on down the path that are going to be more massive? You're sort of trying to weigh up what to focus your time on, because my mods take months and months and months to develop, and then months and months and months to fulfill. If you just chase everything, then you'll never get anything out, and you'll just be chasing your tail the whole time. So you sort of have to be a little bit strategic about what you focus on and what you target. Obviously, everybody's mods aren't going to be in that basket because some people's stuff can be released quicker and they can be sort of more reactive to things. But for mine, I sort of have to sort of make those kind of decisions on a new release. Then it's down to, are there mod making opportunities in the game? Are the ideas that I'm coming up with sort of even conducive to my style of modding, which is LED sort of heavy? And then I guess finding out whether there's, all the other mod makers are piling on or not, and whether it's going to be a really competitive marketplace for that type of thing. That's my thought process on whether to create a new mod or not. And then sometimes you just come up with such not a great idea, but an idea you really want to pursue anyway. You just do it anyway, which is quite often the case. What about you, Jimmy? What's your thought process when you're coming up with a new product?
I guess it kind of depends on the mod, right? So if it's a utilitarian mod, right, and one that's going to be generic to every game, my R&D is mostly validation of the problem. And is this a problem that I can solve across Stern games, JJP games, etc.? Whereas if it's in the case of like the Twilight Zone displays and stuff like that, game specific, that one kind of came about as I think that would be cool. I'm going to make one. And I did. And then for the most part, you're just hoping that you don't desecrate the game and people think that you've ruined, the game.
Especially with a game like Twilight Zone, right?
Right. That's like, oh, this grail game, or whatever.
Yeah.
And so, but most of my R&D on the utilitarian side is validation of the problem. How easily can I make a product that's generic to the different manufacturers in the space, the different regions in which these games are sold, before I go out there and just kind of order 1,000 of a thing or whatever, and then validate it with the market, right? So a lot of times what I'll do is I'll make a prototype of something, I'll record a video, we'll drop it on Pinside, and worst case scenario, it's just a, hey, I'm hacking on this thing thread. And then you kind of, vet the response that way. And then, of course, make friends. A lot of my friends, they get the products 8, 9, 10 months before the public even sees them because we're testing on that. So that's typically how I draw the line in the sand, I guess, with the different mod types and how I would approach R&D to those. But I hope that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, with toppers, we don't necessarily always take the same approach because usually the manufacturer either shipped it with a topper or they're coming with a topper. So we're looking at back catalog quite a bit. But I will agree that like top of mind games is really critical, right? Whatever that means outside of that spectrum. I mean, like with Metallica hits the marks you just brought up, Davey, because like it's out recently and people are really excited about it. I think it just hit #1 on Pinside strongly, which it may stick around. That's pretty impressive. I feel like top of mind games is really important. A couple of things I kind of wrote down, get a little bit more into the weeds around making the thing, which is like, as you really source parts or you start to build it, like really think about, how hard is this going to be to assemble in mass, right? So like really spend the time to not just think about it from building one, but from building many. And the parts you're sourcing can be a part of that. Like, if you're going to be building this for a year or two, are there alternatives to maybe some of the parts you're using? Those are things that are kind of beyond the theme, but really get into just like the longevity of it, which I think the sooner you can kind of identify some of those things, the better. And then for us, like shipping is a huge issue in terms of breakage. So we're constantly, thinking about building it for shipping at the very early phases. And we've even eliminated creative ideas that we felt like, the shipping could have an impact on.
That's really interesting that you mentioned that, man, because like it's such an unglamorous side of mod making, isn't it? Mm-hmm. To consider how I'm going to stick this in a box and send it to somebody, but it's such a critical part, and it's all these unglamorous parts of mod making that I like, and you mentioned parts as well, like ensuring that you've got enough parts to build something, ensuring those parts are sustainable, um, you know, and working out how many you've actually got in your shed or your warehouse or whatever it is such an unglamorous part of mod making, but it's like one of the most important things. Interestingly, I received Pulp Fiction today. I know 6 months behind everybody else, but what I was so surprised at was that all of the foam that they used to pack out Pulp Fiction fitted inside a single carrier bag, like shopping carrier bag. Like, when you get a new Stern new in box and it's like the foam is just like monumental, like it fits in garbage bags, like 3 garbage bags or whatever. Like theirs fit in like a small carrier bag in that. Now, what I want to know is whether that's enough, to not have people receive it with damage, or whether they've just been more clever about it,
Yeah. Well, Brad, you went through this process probably more recent than any of us. Anything you look back on that you might have done differently, or any advice?
Yeah, for us, I mean, we, it's in my background, we usually do a lot of benchmarking and looking to try and improve products. But in this case, our first product, there's really what was there to benchmark was the machines that have been out and the designs for 75 plus years, and so we're walking into something that really has never been done before as an accessory on a machine that I'm aware of, and I've never seen one over the years. So we were really coming up with a new idea, and so we made first prototypes and got them out to some higher end players just to see what they thought about them. I think it's a very fickle market of acceptance. When you're bringing something out, and we didn't want to get totally crapped on right out of the chute. So we sent some to some players and got some high end players and got some really good feedback that hey, it's a pretty cool product, and that's kind of how we started and giving us motivation. But our company, what we're going to do mostly is probably going to be outside of the glass or with the glass taken off. So we're working on another product right now that would be a useful service tool for the industry. And we think that when we bring that out, it'll be a very good product. So we're starting to look at that. And in the R&D also, we put a lot of lines in the water, like sending parts to Rob just to get people's feedback early on in the process. And Rob, thank you. He actually gave us some advice on some things on it, and we appreciated that. So just getting, we had a group of people that we went and talked to and got some good feedback.
Tell us about Davey, Jimmy. Like, how many iterations of the product do you think have gone through before you actually start even ordering parts for the first multiple of these things?
So just like for a 3D printed part, and I mean, iterations is kind of a little bit sort of flexible here, I suppose, but in terms of the exports of the design file that I use to then print with and test with locally, like maybe 20 for some of my big mods.
And is that all pre-paint, or are you painting those too, or is it?
No.
Okay.
Like fit testing. That's just fit testing. So with theater, which was the new Godzilla center building that I did for the back, that has like a collapsible wall thing and a servo that sort of pulls it down. Sort of fire shoots out the wall, because everything was sort of really cramped in and had to sort of skirt around internal opto brackets and things like that. The fit was just, really, really tricky. So you'd sort of, measure up and you'd print one and it wasn't quite right. And then you'd sort of, go through this process, and then you'd think you'd have it right. And then you'd forget that you hadn't added one of the parts that was needed. So you'd add that part in, and then suddenly it wouldn't fit again. So yeah, that went through, so many iterations, and not everything's like that, of course. Like, I'm working on a mod for Elton John at the moment, which is a lot simpler than what I just described, and that's maybe gone through 6 or 7 printed iterations before it was correct. And I think as well as when you get more experience doing these things, you can sort of anticipate problems happening before they happen, just because you've sort of seen it before. So you sort of you sort of build that into your design before you even start printing it. But that just comes through experience, I suppose. What about you, Jimmy? How many iterations did you have to go through before Pinlights became Pinlights?
I mean, certainly more than the limitation on Fusion 360's like trial edition or whatever, right? That's like that's how you know that you've made it, right? You're like, oh, okay, we're getting there.
Yeah,
It's like, when they won't let you export them anymore. It's I mean, I just pulled our metal mounting system and all that. We're on revision 23 of it, just because we're like, well, okay, what's the angle look like on certain games? As a matter of fact, if you're installing lights on a game made in 1975 versus one made in 2025, vertical clearance, you actually need a different metal mount so that the light gets thrown to the right area on the playfield. And so and as you've just said, Davey, I mean, we learned that just through experience and just going through the iterations and stuff like that. But we've done close to 30 revs on that part alone, and even more on the Twilight Zone stuff, just getting the viewing angles right, it's just part of it.
I was going to say, like, given that Pinlights is sort of a universal mod in that it's you're aiming to get it into every game, no matter what the architecture is, no matter what the game title is. I mean, obviously that increases your market massively, but it also increases the complexity massively, right?
Oh yes. Yeah, the problem with that is things are fun when you're building 10 of them, right? You're giving them to your closest friends, and when you need to build 4,000 of them a year, that's a job. you're like, okay, well, how do we do that? Do you buy shop space? Do you hire out help? Or in our case, what we did is we've tried to automate everything to where we're a subassembler at that point. We get subassemblies made by our manufacturing partners, our strategic partners, and then we assemble them here. So final assembly gets done here. And those are the types of questions, as you have to ask and answer as you go from tens of mods to hundreds of mods to thousands, and that's going to be different based on your expertise. But it's definitely changed things for us compared to what we were doing in the Twilight Zone stuff.
And I think that's key too. I mean, one of the points we were talking about earlier, Rob, was like the do's and don'ts of mod making, and I think that's like one of the key things that has enabled me to sort of scale. As I went from selling 30 mods to selling thousands of mods, is embracing as many sort of as much third party help as you can. So cable assemblies, get all them made somewhere else. Absolutely anything that can get made externally, get it made externally, because that's just going to speed up your process massively. And when you are a small business and you've only got a certain number of staff and you want to do it in a sustainable way that's not going to increase the risk of your business massively, getting as much stuff done outside of your business as possible is really going to help in that process.
Yeah, I'd agree with that, and you'll get better with that over time to kind of identify what's critical, and also the timing of that. I mean, there are cases where you can make it by making them yourself, and the quality might even be better than outsourcing a little bit, but it just doesn't make sense to do that long term. And you've got to be patient with yourself to be like, okay, I'm going to take the time to make 50 of these, but I'm going to also start today to figure out how to get the next 50 made by somebody else, because it does take a lot of time. You got to wait for the samples to come in, make sure they look right, build in, an iteration or two there. And we're starting to get into production. So we definitely want to talk about it. I think one thing I want to say too is what's so special about the pinball space is everybody wants to help. So also, as you're in the R&D phase, as you're learning new things, ask, the people they're going to know people. You're going to get a lot of answers pretty quickly. So definitely, you see it in the homebrew, you see it in the mod making space. Like, people are there and they want to help, and ultimately they may end up collaborating on things too. So I think there's a lot of reason to make that happen. All right, so let's talk about production, which obviously is an extension of R&D. I talked a little bit about making decisions about parts, but as you move kind of beyond that product that you know is ready to go, what are some things that you're doing differently, Davey, that you might have not been doing a year or two ago? Anything come to mind?
Well, I think number one is sorting out the BOM, right? So the BOM is the bill of materials. Yeah. And I think everybody who's involved in pinball, knows that term, because, we always talk about, what BOM goes into a pinball machine and whether it's worth what we pay for them.
The visual BOM, you just look at the bottom of the playfield and you know exactly how much it costs.
Yeah. Well, your bank balance. Yeah. So, even sort of when you're doing things small scale or large scale, it all comes down to basically an Excel spreadsheet and just having all your parts listed, what they cost, and
don't forget how much. Don't forget shipping. Factor in shipping into the into that cost.
Yeah, exactly. And import. Don't forget tax too. Import tax. And assembly costs too. So if you're doing things at scale, make sure you're counting the time it takes to put these things together. So you essentially want to break it all down in a big sheet. I still, I've automated a lot of stuff and moved away from Excel in a lot of ways, because it sort of things get too complex to just do in a spreadsheet. But I still do my BOM costs in Excel, because it's quite simple in terms of how you calculate, what a part costs, where it comes from, how many of those parts go into the mod, what it costs for one part, what it costs if you're ordering in lots of 100 or 500 or whatever it is, what the tax is on that, what your if you're using PayPal, then what your PayPal charges are, and breaking it all down that way. That's sort of number one. That's sort of how I work it out. And then as a maker, you need to determine what your margin is on the product, and everybody's got a different idea on how to calculate that. It depends on whether you're aiming low or you're aiming high on that, or whether you're going smack bang in the middle. And that's not really, I make a lot of recommendations to friends within the mod sphere about where they should sort of set that thing, but ultimately it's up to the individual themselves and where they want to place their product. And I think in tandem with that lies understanding the market too. So, you might want to price your mod really high in order to maximize the profit on it, but will the market accept that? Are you going to lose sales as a result of you positioning your price at a certain point? So in my view, there's a sweet spot on that. There's a way to keep your business sustainable. There's a way to earn profit in order to keep going and have a successful business, but also sort of encouraging people not to think that you're gouging at the same time. So that's a really difficult problem to teach someone, and I think that's only something that people can work out on their own.
Brad, I forgot a challenge that I'm sure you can sympathize with, which is let's be careful with pricing.
Yeah, I was trying to be careful. Yeah, that is me being careful. Yeah.
So I've got 4 bamboos, Brad, and I'm always kind of asking myself, like, should I add another, right? And what is the benefit? And do I just want another 3D printer? Like, of course I do, right? So how are you thinking about expanding this key tool for building your product?
Well, I just got back from the ski trip, and guess what was on my front porch?
Brand new one now.
Another one.
Nice.
Yeah, which is a good thing, for the people that are using bamboo. It's not expensive, but it's still a cost. Depending on the products you're going to be making, the volume that you can make. So in our case, we took the approach to launch with Stern Spike 2, We have 2 part numbers. If you don't consider color, that can basically cover all of the Spike 2 games going all the way back to Batman 66, I think was the first. And looking at that market, it's supposedly around 100,000 or so machines. So we took the approach for that, and then for our manufacturing, at least to start, to have those two SKUs. We don't have a bill of material because it's just one part for us right now. The next product we're working on does have a BOM with other parts that we'll end up purchasing. But yeah, we went back and just calculated the what if scenario. What if we got 2% of the 100,000? How many would we make a day to be able to fulfill that? When we put out things on Pinside, like little teasers on a thread for our Jaws pin grip, for instance, we'll see a flurry of that. And I'll usually make some in advance and have them in anticipation of that. But that's the approach that we took. We just kind of looked to see, and then it wasn't too difficult for us to expand at this time to have additional manufacturing.
I love that you threw out 2%, and I want to reinforce that. So what he's talking about there is looking at the entire market and looking at 2% as a success, right? Like if you can hit and succeed by selling to 2% of entire possible market, that's a great place to start. I don't know, Jimmy and Davey, how you feel about that one, but I think grounding yourself in a number like that can be really beneficial.
So how would you find out what the total market is in pinball?
To be honest with you, so we were at when we were at Expo, we went to the Stern party because we're part of the Stern Army as well. We run tournaments, and so we had the opportunity to have a fireside chat with Gary Stern and Seth Davis, and I've heard it in other place before that there's approximately 100,000 or so Spike 2 units out there in that ballpark range.
It's an interesting stat.
I don't know if you guys have heard that, but I've heard it a couple of different times.
No. Next time you have that fireside chat, can you ask him how many Godzillas they've sold?
Yeah.
2% of 100,000. Way more than that.
Would love to know that stat.
We looked at that and we said, that's why we started there as well. That we had, if there's anything that was going to give us a chance to be successful, then we targeted that market.
Jimmy, you've had a lot of success in mod making. We talked about that, but I'm quite certain you're probably making more Pinlights than anything you've made before in terms of volume. Is that true?
Oh, yes. Yes.
So what's that been like?
Insane. It's been insane just because we didn't really know what the response was going to be in terms of offering a simpler product, right? I mean, usually you don't be like, oh, we're going to be successful by removing features. But in this case, it was a formula that turned out to be a well-worked formula.
Simpler in terms of your competitors or something you had before?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. It was basically.
But also in terms of your own products, right, Jimmy? Like, is this? I mean, outside of the app that you've written to support the product, which is incredibly complex, the product itself, is it correct to say it is a simpler product than sort of PinVision was?
By far. In terms of the installation, in terms of how it's manufactured, how it's programmed, all that type of stuff. As a matter of fact, most of my time now is spent on the production side of the house, not the product development side of the house. As we get into more generic products, I've found that my mental capacity has been pulled in the other direction more so
because that's where you can optimize, right? Or that's where your creativity can provide value.
Yep. Just different side of the brain. But it's been nuts. But most of the games we sell into are the Sterns. I mean, so it doesn't surprise me, Brad, to hear those figures, just based on how many units we have leaving that just get slapped on the latest, the Spike 2 games. Yeah, there's got to be a ton of them out there.
Let's talk about evolving the product during production. Are you guys finding yourself kind of making tweaks and why are you making those tweaks when you're actually making real product? What's happening there? Anybody?
Oh yeah.
Shall I jump in? Yeah, it's my turn. Yeah, I'll jump in. No, constantly, like right up until the point
Okay,
of.
good. Hey, you're making me feel better.
Yeah, I mean, stupidly as well. I mean, Jimmy was just talking about how a simpler product has been wildly successful. And that's awesome, Jimmy. And I'm so pleased and happy for you that this has been such a huge success. But I think it's also incredibly interesting that, and it's the same thing sort of with my products too. Like Tokyo Neon, the sign that started it all, has been far and away our biggest seller, and it's far and away the easiest thing to assemble, the easiest, the simplest thing out of everything we've done. And yet my trajectory has been to make things more complex and harder to assemble. And we've just been working on the Jaws buoy, trying to get the first 50 out the door for the last 3 months. And the first build run, we've been working through assembly issues and screws not fitting and all kinds of things, just because the bomb's grown, the complexity's grown. And while that keeps me creatively satisfied because I'm pushing the boundaries, from a business point of view, it doesn't actually make a lot of sense. We would be better off making simpler stuff because, actually, does the consumer want more complicated things, or am I just satisfying my own creative ambitions to make more complicated stuff? And it's not really a question I've solved yet. But the Elton thing that I mentioned earlier is going to be simpler than what we've done in the past. So yeah, we'll see whether that's more of a success or less of a success. And a lot of things can drive success though too, right? Like I mean, do you reckon Elton sold well?
Maybe. Should have. Maybe not.
Yeah.
Or better than most of it.
Yeah, probably better than Avatar, right? Slightly better than Avatar, yeah, but possibly not as much as Harry Potter will. But we shall see. To get back to what we were originally talking about, I'd make tons of changes through the process, either pulling in feedback from people in threads or ideas, or just wanting to pursue sort of a creative outlet. I do make tons of changes through the process.
Jimmy, sounds like you guys are constantly tweaking as well.
Yeah, well, I mean, it kind of depends on the nature of the changes, right? Like you can't, for example, feature changes. You can't integrate every feature that gets suggested to you, because otherwise you're going to have a big Rube Goldberg machine product that is impossible for anyone to install. But you also kind of take your licks as you're going through the production cycle, and you get feedback, forced feedback that's like, it doesn't work in these situations, or it fails in a certain way. So yeah, we're constantly tweaking things. One thing was recent, turns out that in Barrels of Fun, they have two different cabinet node boards that you can potentially get. One has 11 pins, the other has 13 pins. Well,
fantastic.
So it's stuff like that you've just got to, kind of keep on top of. But and in those cases, yeah, you better be making revisions if you if you want to have a successful product. I mean, that's going to be my response there. But it's constantly.
So you're talking about sort of after the fact too, isn't it? Because there's tweaks through the development process, I suppose, but then tweaks after things go live, and how you respond to that as well. And I mean, that's an art in itself, isn't it? Like how you manage those problems, both from a consumer facing point of view and also from a design point of view, responding to those issues quickly, but not in a knee-jerk reaction that could potentially create more problems. And that balance, when things go wrong, I think is incredibly difficult.
and I think Brad could speak to this better than anybody, just on the product-driven development side of the house, that often goes into these things. But from a technical perspective as well, it's okay if we have X number of boards in the field and I send out a firmware update that bricks those boards, I have a really big, this is not a hypothetical problem. This is okay, now all of a sudden we have a very expensive problem on our hands. And so there are those types of limitations, but most certainly, we're constantly tweaking, sending out updates and stuff like that. But we definitely do have to be careful that we don't break the experience for everybody else. But yeah, it's a fun feedback cycle. Don't get scared, dear listener. It's fun. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
So we've made our products. Here we go. We got these guys ready to go. Are you guys ready to move on to the fun part?
Yeah. Let's do it.
All right. So we mentioned earlier we're probably going to break this up, and we're definitely going to have to break this up. So let's spend a good amount of time kind of talking about what that experience is like leading up to launch. Like, what are you doing? Obviously, you're building. But what have we found amongst the group here that has kind of contributed to success, and maybe some things we wish we'd have done differently in the past?
So Brad,
Brad, what's your last month been like?
Yeah, in our case, that was huge for us because we I sent many parts out and prototypes to people to get feedback, and so you get various ranges of feedback depending on what they're looking at the part. I got people that said these are great, it's exactly what I wanted, and then I've talked to other people that they have maybe a little more keener eye. Had the opportunity to talk to Scott Denisi about them, and he's an engineer, and so we talked about some things that I didn't really recognize. They weren't major, but just some tweaks that he suggested, and just getting that feedback to make them better, and just to make them more robust before we were doing it, and getting that feedback from several different people. It can't happen in every case, but in ours, we were able to do that. And, I'm still sending sets out for just, I call it marketing, just to get marketing feedback. I've sent many sets out just for free. Even people that order them from us now, I'll send them even 1 or 2 extra sets for other games that they have in their collection, just to get more feedback.
And Brad, did you when you were developing this product, did you have like a date when you were going to go, we're going to go live on this date, and we're going to announce on this date, and we're going to put up a Pinside post or a Facebook post or whatever it is? Like, talk us through, particularly as a I guess a newbie in the mod sphere and stuff, like how you like what your thought process was around that launch day.
Yeah, so we had a target. So I probably thought about the idea in September, probably in August timeframe, or maybe even July. So we had and we didn't have at that time, we didn't say we want to be launched by January, March of next year. So we kind of did it in steps. So we had our first target was to have some prototypes to take to Expo. And we met up. We didn't know who we were going to partner, or not partner's not the right word, but we had exhibitor there allow us to put our prototypes on the machine. They were the first ones, and we just stood there and took got some feedback. And so that was first goal for us, to get initial market feedback from the public, other than our friends and family and people that we knew. And then our next milestone after that is that we said we wanted to start selling by the end of the year. And so we were able to achieve that goal, and just for Stern games. And now we've got a target set where we had target set to do other games as well, other machines. And so we've just now launched for Bally Williams, and it just so happens Bally Williams is the same as a Jersey Jack, same Bally Williams construction. So
yeah,
we didn't initially say we wanted to do it by this time, but just because we had never been through the process of doing that and supplying to the market, and even thinking about would we sell just on our website or through Pinside, and having to add all that on to, your product development and getting stuff made. And then you got to deal with all of the, actually, we got to sell this somehow. So we did have those milestones.
Yeah, just that little, that little detail of having to sell them at the final end. Yeah,
part of it, but it's a necessity.
Yeah, it's the pointy end. It's the pointy end. Yeah, for sure. It's interesting, isn't it? Because I think coming at it from, I guess, an outsider's point of view. I mean, the rest of us who have sort of gone through a couple of different products, you sort of just follow the same process as you've followed for your other ones, and you probably evolve it slightly every time. Maybe it gets a bit more sophisticated, or you cover a few more channels. But my approach these days is, I've been sort of collecting an email marketing list for a while, and so you sort of hammer that email marketing list. You put up a Pinside post, you put up a Facebook post, you put a post up on the Mod Makers channel on Facebook, and put up an Instagram post, and you do all this in quick fire procession in order to try and cover as many bases as possible on that launch day. I mean, we've even, amongst people behind the scenes, talked about what day is the most frequented on Pinside, as to when you put your post up, so it'll, be seen by the most amount of people. And the consensus is Friday, in case anybody's wondering. Yeah, because people are at work and they don't want to be at work, and so they're like browsing Pinside when they should be at work and stuff like that. I don't actually know if that's true or not. I actually started harvesting the Pinside numbers using like a script to try and work out when the best day was to post these things, and it's pretty even through the week. So,
well, Gary Stern told me it's Friday.
It's Friday, yeah. Fireside chat. It's Friday, yeah.
But I think another thing to that too is that our product also, it wasn't in sync with a game release, and so we wanted to take our time being the first ones out. Probably Jimmy was in the same situation where you launch something like that and you don't want to have to go back because it's going to be there and be used on many, many different machines. And, so we weren't in a hurry to do it. We wanted to try and do it the best we could and take our time when it came out. So,
yeah, taking your time is important. I'd say like the traffic you're going to get on day 1, day 2, day 3, like that is going to be a vast majority of your traffic. So you want to make sure your media is right, your messaging is right. When you're talking with customers, talk about pricing. Like, I'm not saying change your pricing during the pre-launch phase, but I think you do want to kind of get some feedback and figure out how to position things. Get your photos right, because like I said, it's just like, I feel like if you just look at the traffic, it's all in those first couple of days, as far as compared to the life of the product beyond that. At least that's what we've seen. Jimmy, have you guys done any, when you're showing it off to customers, are you doing pricing and feedback at that point, or how are you looking at pricing this late in the game?
Absolutely. I mean, it's easier when you have a competitor, right? It's easier because you can anchor to their price. You say, okay, we either have to be around here, below here, or if we're above it, we have to quantify what our value add is, right? Like, why is it worth that much? If you're honestly, when we launched the Twilight Zone stuff, it was a shot in the dark. First price on that one was $369. Why? Because for every unit I assembled, I wanted to make at least $100. That was literally the math that went into it. I said, bomb is this, production time
what is my time worth?
This is what I want. And we're both doing this, Davey.
Yeah, I know. Sorry, man. It's because of these close mics, isn't it? Yeah.
I need to. Yeah,
$100.
I know. I need to stop gesturing.
What will I not hate myself over? Yeah.
Yeah, that was really what it was. But then also, I was like, and dear engineers, if you're listening, you're wanting to make good stuff, you're probably going to price too low. That's common. You don't know how to value your own work. That's a common thing. But I remember launching that mod at the price that we launched it at, and I was like, I'm going to get spit on for this, right? Like, they're going to run me out of town. And then it turns out that it's like, no, actually we underpriced it. But it really is kind of a shot in the dark. But yes, we do talk to people while while they're testing it or whatnot. But in reality, you don't learn until you launch, because when the person gets it for free, sure, it's worth whatever price you think you're going to sell it at, right? They're going to lie to you, or they're going to be like, they're going to try to make you feel good, right? Yeah, sure, I'll do it. But once we launched, any of those products to Pinside, and then the money hit the bank account, that was the validation that we were looking for.
Yeah. Look, I think when it comes to pricing, my and like I said earlier, like everybody's view is different on this, but my view is you put it as low as you possibly can in order to create a sustainable business for yourself. Like, you don't want to make it so low that you're like scraping by, because then your business won't survive, and you won't be able to continue. But by placing it just that sweet spot, you're going to maximize your orders, and so therefore you do it on volume rather than on just trying to make loads of money on smaller amounts of sales. Because I think that creates a nicer environment to live in as a business as well, because your customers aren't going to feel ripped off that they paid a certain amount of money for something that they actually don't think was worth it. But obviously everybody fulfills different positions in that market, and personally I'm glad that they do. I'm always glad that people price themselves above me, because then that just makes me in the middle rather than at the top, and I don't want to be at the top.
How do you guys look at volume? Day 1 volume, day 30, day 90, and why are you making those decisions on any product? Jimmy, what did you guys do with Pinlights? Volume available to the public is what I'm talking about.
Chad, it's like, okay. Volume available to the public.
Ready to ship.
Sure.
I'm glad you asked me. Yeah.
For us, it was a minimum order quantity, right? So it was hey, we know what our partners' minimum order quantities are in terms of getting metal stamped. We know, actually, our first product was extrusion, was actually extruded plastic. So we know that we need to run at least several hundred of these things, right? So, okay, if a mission critical part, I needed 500 of those, or in a realistic case, it was 100. So the fab wouldn't run less than 100 of them at a time for us. I knew that I was going to price everything based on a minimum volume at 100, knowing that I was going to kind of surpass that. But so day 1, we had enough parts on hand at least to make 100 units, and that's we brought probably 20 of them or so to TPF, and we're kind of handing them out to people and stuff like that. But that's how it started. Similar with the Twilight Zone, it was, what's the minimum lot of displays we have to buy in order to validate this? Then at that point, it was scale as kind of as fast as you can to get the costs in line.
I just want to note that I did not receive one of those, and I'm not.
You didn't want one. You did not.
Those
were early.
It wasn't any good. It wasn't ready.
This is an interesting. Has everybody got my sound okay? I'm getting sound.
You kind of went a little shallow, but you're okay. Okay. I'll take you up a little bit.
This is an interesting point to make as well as a maker, because obviously, Jimmy, you're producing to order, aren't you? So people can order on your site and you send a product out, and so essentially you're building product on the expectation that you're going to get orders, or in the hope that you're going to get orders in some cases. Maybe not for you, but for other people. Yeah. Whereas, the way that I'm approaching it is different, in that I essentially get a list of interest and use that to, ascertain how many sales I'm going to get, and then I buy product based on those list numbers. And I build in the expectation that 30% of that list is going to be wiped off with people who don't respond or cancel or whatever it is. And it usually tends to be around 30% for me, depending on the product. So for anybody who's listening, and I hope that people are trying to work out whether they're going to be, mod makers or not, there's various approaches that you can do to try and work out your market, I suppose. Whether I think that in terms of Jimmy's approach, the benefit of that is that you don't have that drop off. People order the product, you send it out to them, and then it's just a case of making sure that they're happy with it and that there aren't problems in shipping and things like that. But the drawback in that is that you have to essentially go all in on having stock that you might not sell.
It's fascinating how different all four of our products really are. Like for Brad, you've got a much simpler product to build, similar kind of market size as Jimmy. Jimmy has a more complex product to build. Davey, your and I's things aren't the same at all, because like you're making way more units, but then I'm probably investing way more man hours in making a similar amount of units. Of course, there's a price reflection, but if you look at Davey's, if you're a mod maker, go to Davey's website and look at what he's doing with like the amount of data he's providing to his customers on how many people are on the wait list, how many has he sold, how many people have bought in the last 24 hours. I mean, it's like in a live marketplace, and it's a crazy approach. Like no one in this space is doing it. Like you see this in other spaces, of course, but and what you're saying, Davey, is you're leveraging that data to make decisions, which is really awesome. So definitely look at what Davey's doing and ask him all sorts of questions about why he's doing it when you get a chance. But it's pretty cool to see.
This is something I was going to bring up as well. And obviously I'm in a beneficial position because I'm a coder by trade anyway. But anybody who's starting a small business, whether it's mod making or anything, just automate the shit out of everything. As much as you can automate it. And that can sometimes come down to simple stuff like, emails and responding to emails is a massive job when you're running a small business. And it's an important job. And it's one that you shouldn't shirk because, it's a direct connection to your customers. And you can form bonds through those emails, if done correctly. However, the same questions get asked time and time and time again. And if you're writing the same response to things 100 times, one of those responses will be the best response, and 99 of them will be not quite as good as the other responses, the one good response. So it would be better to get that good response that has all the information, the pertinent information, and be able to send it out the same way every time. And so you can do that easily just by keyboard shortcuts. So when people ask questions about the splitter or about combining parcels and stuff, I send them the same response just by doing a keyboard shortcut. So number one, that saves me a ton of time. Oh yeah, what do we got here? You're talking about the splitter? Yeah, the splitter. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
tons of these are great.
There it is. Yeah.
Definitely, that's all. That like working through that during pre-launch is critical. Like you should be working on your support documentation. You should be working on general FAQ, which could lead to email responses. And the reason you want to do that in that phase is because you don't know what's coming during launch. Like you're going to be inundated. You're going to be hitting up opportunities. You're going to be probably going to shows that you weren't planning on going to. And the last thing you want is for the people who are getting your product to get your lackluster installation manual because you thought you had time and you just didn't. So Davey, saving time on emails is gonna contribute to that too. I mean, I 100% agree.
Yeah, and obviously not everything you can respond to with a keyboard shortcut and stuff, but there is a ton of stuff, like repeated questions that you get asked all the time. And obviously having FAQs is a wonderful thing. And I enable people to be able to check their list positions on the website and stuff. And a lot of people do that, but then some people are still just going to email you and ask, and so, that is part of the job. I've taken to waking up really early in the morning and cracking through my emails, just to get that part done and dusted and to move on with the day. But there's a ton of stuff you can automate, and a lot of online tools that can do it these days. If this then that is an online tool that you can automate a lot of stuff like parsing Gmail messages and doing certain things, chucking them in an Excel or a Google Docs spreadsheet or whatever it is. And so just lean into that automation and just try and get repetitive jobs done by the computer. And it will save you heaps of time and free you up to do the things that you've actually got the skills to do, or that you can add value to, as you said earlier, Rob, which is design and running your business.
Definitely. So guys, we've covered R&D, production, and pre-launch. We're definitely going to have to hit the rest of this on a future episode, which I'm excited to cover, because that really gets into the kind of the meat of it. And we want to talk about maintaining your product. We want to talk about when issues arise, how you're dealing with that from an external communication perspective. I want to talk with Davey about end of life of products. So like, when is the right time to take something off the line and make room for new products, that type of thing. And of course, expanding too. So working with new partners, hitting new machines. We're going to cover all that. Jimmy, Brad, thank you so much for being here. Hopefully you guys are down for coming back, and we'll continue this in the future.
Yeah, thanks for having us, guys. It's been awesome. Thank you.
Anytime.
Jimmy,
it's been fun. Thank you.
Jimmy, thank you much. Brad, thank you much. Davey, we're going to be back probably in a couple weeks. We did have an awesome video on D&D. We got to go to Stern and check that out. So if you guys want to dig into our videos, we've got a video on Dungeons & Dragons. I had a great time playing it. Props to Stern for putting out a mech that is above and beyond anything I've seen from them in a long time. Have you guys got a chance to hit that up yet? Probably not, Davey. I know it's not your way. Jimmy, have you got to play it yet?
Nah, not in person. No, I've only seen the videos.
It'll be at TPF, I'm sure. So this group, all of us will be at TPF, and we hope to see you guys there. That's March 21st, 22nd. So just in a couple of months. So guys, thanks again, man. We will see everyone soon. Take care.
Great. Thanks. See ya. Bye.
Bye.